rando community of putting the NPCs back into the rando so we can actually give the flower to Nailmaster Oro instead of just waving it around in his hut. Some other things to note about the board is the way the dab board in specific works is we tried to assign rough difficulty values to every goal that you see on this generator, and then the board creates a magic square. So there is one goal representative of everything from 1 to 25, and it tries to balance the lines against each other so that no one line is more ridiculously impossible to do than any other line. Which is why you see goals like Check Void Heart, Radiant Boss, and Nailmaster Oro not overlapping, because we try to keep it so that there is not one obvious line that you have to assign or else you'll lose.
Another quirk to note about this board, the 10 Lifeblood masks at the same time in the bottom corner, since Lifeblood cocoons are randomized, instead of being able to go to Lifeblood cocoons and pick those up, those checks will be randomized as well, and those Lifeblood checks give either 6 or 9 Lifeblood masks, which can actually make the goal easier. But I think it's still pretty interesting on this board because the Lifeblood is pretty scattered throughout the map and will take a bit of effort to get.
Yeah, so as we round the corner into our final 2.5 minutes of their spoiler time here, just Jason, what are your thoughts in terms of line assignment? What are you looking at if you were playing in this race? What would you force on someone?
So I think one of the more obvious lines to give is column 4, because defeat any one Radiant boss is pretty infamous in the dab community as being a pretty hard goal. In addition, you have to do Umu, which is like not the worst, but also pretty annoying. And Dreamnail Marissa is actually secretly pretty annoying on this board with simple keys in not so great places and like not very close to each other. So that would definitely be my first thought. But there's also the Kingsbrand and Beast End, which DV stags at 22 grub, so you're not getting that probably. And especially if you're not familiar with Dark Deep Nest, like my co-commentator here, it might be a bit of a chore getting there. So I might be looking at row 5 or column 2 as well. Of course, there's also Flower to Nailmaster Oro, and I have not had any experience with that goal, so I don't. It might be worth it to assign like row 1 for that.
Yeah, something I'm looking at. So yes, it's true. We've got Lantern buried in deep in waterways behind the Whormp Arena in this particular seed, because Dark Deep Nest is something that's entertaining if you're not me specifically. One of the things that I like generally about dab is that attention is very much a resource. You only have 10 minutes to look things up at the beginning of the time. So I tend to overvalue goals like equip 5 charms at the same time. In a randomizer where you're just finding those charms incidentally, it's not that bad of a goal. But here, where you have to look up 5 one-notch charms or some charm notches, it can take a lot from you to do that you could be focusing on planning your route. So I am liking the bottom left, top right to get equip 5 charms and Flower to Nailmaster Oro. I think spend 5,000 is pretty easy on this board. There was some geo that's not too bad to get a hold of, but that's what I'm looking at. But we're going to see in just about 10 seconds here what the runners are assigning. So we will not have to worry any longer.
Okay, it looks like Mathulu has assigned top left, bottom right. So Gorgeous Husk, QG Arenas, Green Path Genocide, any one Radiant Boss, and 10 Lifeblood masks. And Jeff has assigned column 4. So now we will be counting both the racers off as they and have them start moving and completing these goals. They should be off now. With some
neither player taking me up on my diagonal. But yeah, TLBR, defeat both arenas in Queen's Garden is pretty rough. But I think the biggest personality pick here is Jeff assigning Dreamnail Marissa to Mathulu. Mathulu is a colossal Marissa defender, And so this is going to be a goal that, in addition to difficult to complete, is going to be psychologically taxing as well.
Yeah. So we'll probably see both of them pick up C dash here at Fury of the Fallen and continue on to get Claw from Go Mask Shard. I'd be hard pressed to believe that they'd do anything except that. We might see Mathulu at the end of the race sitting at Marissa, refusing to dream now.
Yeah, working to get the timer thing sorted out there should be good. It does not matter ultimately because unlike speedrun races, which were going to be timed with the loadless time and compared to at the end, this is very much an RTA affair. Part of the mods that we use for Randomizer by default include a load normalizer to make sure everyone's playing on the same thing, and it is purely real time for who can mark goals on the board fastest in some Randomizer formats. So the convention is RTA anyway.
Yeah, here you see both of the runners did the warp out to get the King's Pass hard save after picking up Fury, and both already using C dash to save some time. You love to see it.
And both of them getting a quick stall there in the elevator. Yeah, some of the other mods we're going to see in this race, we already talked about load normalizer and obviously the randomizer mod. You can also see some cosmetic things like a geo tracker up on their UI there. That's to make the spend X geo goals a little bit easier to account for. We're also playing with bench warp on. So as opposed to speedruns where you've seen a lot of very judicious bench use to be able to save and quit back as part of the route, this time you can warp back to any bench you've previously sat on. So more often than not, you'll see runners just grab a bench, even if it's sort of incidentally on their way, just to open up the possibility of being able to fast travel back to it later on.
Here we'll see both runners attempt this Go Mask Charge skip. Looks like Mathulu got it first try. Looks like Jeff is getting... Oh no, the bench fly died. Looks like Jeff is now going for the Shade skip.
It's another viable backup. You don't see it in the 4 Mask Shards race, but that's because the 4 Mask Shards race is optimized within an inch of its life.
Yep. So yeah, now both racers will have C-dash claw, which is pretty powerful movement, but still missing that crucial dash, which we'll probably see both of them going for soon. It'll be interesting to see whether they go for, like, there's one dash at Basin Simple Key and another at Mantis Lords, and those are probably the most accessible, and that's a pretty interesting decision there, I think.
Yeah, Mantis Lords is also a goal on this board. There is a second line that both of the runners will have to complete beyond their assigned ones. So generally, bundling goals with movement is a pretty efficient way to play the early game. So I wonder if we do see a Mantis Lords from one or both of these, but it looks like we're not immediately headed in that direction, at least.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff is going towards cliffs. It's possible he's going to loop into Green Path to get, I believe Hidden Station Stag was outside Green Path Stag, and that could be a quick way to get to dash at Basin Simple Key. But there could also be something here that I'm forgetting. Maybe a spell at Mato, I think?
Yeah, looking through our spoiler log here, it looks like Green Path had a dive around, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a VS at Claw. It's at the Vanilla Claw location that was easily the most accessible VS.
Yeah, it looks like Mathulu is opting to C-dash over into right side through Blue Lake. Meanwhile, Jeff getting that dive and heading over into Green Path, it looks like. Possibly both going for that dash at Basin Simple Key would be my guess.
Yep. And yeah, as pointed out a little earlier, shout outs to the C-dash Gruzmother cleanup. Easily the best way to clean up Gruzmom, in my opinion.
Yep.
One other thing.
Also... Oh, go ahead.
Other thing that's worth noting on the rando side of things is you get to see the opportunity to see a lot of skips that are not common in typical gameplay. Here we had a very early claw, so some of those are out, but it's worth noting that our Isma's tier is not something that either runner will necessarily feel the need to pick up, even for something like Check Shape of On.
Yeah, if either of them decides to do the check Shape of Un goal, we might well see a Shape of Un skip in this race, which would be pretty content. But yeah, Jeff will be working towards that kill a Durandu, Duranda, and Golka goal, presumably while in Green Path. That is on his assigned line, I believe. But
Yep.
looks like he's just heading towards Green Path Stag right now. Meanwhile, Mathulu picks up Dash Master and equips it, even without without Dash yet. You love to see it.
It's one of the most common things. It's so often in rando in general, you'll see someone pick up Shaman Stone without spells or Dash Master without dash, and then equip it just for later.
Yeah, looking at chat, that is a very good idea, Kirito. Having a command for the line assignments. I believe Jeff has been assigned TLBR, and Mathulu has been assigned column 4. To answer chat, also, this is easy logic. So no skips are required, but of course, runners are free to do whatever skips they want to in order to speed things up.
Yeah, generally, as opposed to some other rando formats where harder skips being required is a part of the game to sort of incentivize those skips. In Dab, because both players can see the locations of anything anyway, you're incentivized to do whatever skips you're comfortable with just for the name of speed, since you're not incentivized to check random locations in this format as much.
To answer a question in chat, Mathulu used Claw and C-Dash to go past Salubra into Blue Lake. There's some walls you can cling on to make that C-Dash, and it's pretty fast to get to Dreamnail that way.
Yeah, while the racers here are moving through their early game movement stuff, and sure enough, Jeff is picking up that hidden station stag. Let's talk a little bit about probable second lines. So both of the runners got assigned a line with Radiant Boss in it. That's a common choice. Radiant Boss is our 25 difficulty goal on this board. Nailmaster Oro Flower is just 24. So it is common to try and make your second line something that overlaps with the hardest goal in your assigned line. So it looks like Jeff is eyeing column or row 4 rather as something that crosses Radiant Boss, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Mathulu went in that direction as well.
Yeah, row 4 makes a lot of sense, especially for Jeff, because the 4 toll benches, Jeff already needs to do both QG arenas, so the QG toll is pretty free. Green Path toll is pretty free with the Durandu, Duranda, and Golka goal, and City and Basin toll, well, they're both getting Basin toll here, and City toll is not too bad either. So that 4th row is pretty good for Jeff, also pretty good for Mathulu, just because like none of the goals are particularly bad because Radiant Boss is in that row.
Yeah, and we've arrived at the same place here. We actually have remarkable sync from the runners. Shout outs to the true ending race earlier. Imagine doing Maulurks without dash. Couldn't be me.
Yeah. Looks like the routes they took, while different, ended up getting them here at about the same time, which is pretty impressive, actually. So they will both be picking up Dash here. Mathulu will have a bit of an advantage with Dash Master, but we'll see how far that takes him.
Remembering to equip that Dash Master early always pays off. Yeah, to answer a question, we got Jeff as teal and Mathulu as purple.
Yeah. Not entirely sure why they're choosing to open this shortcut here. I don't think there was anything at Broken Vessel. I think this is just they didn't look it up and like are opening this up just in case, because it's hard to consider absolutely everything.
Yeah, and so we're starting to see a little bit of a desync again. Mathulu going into Queen's Gardens, and Jeff, I am assuming this is routing back around to get that green path triple kill.
Yep.
And yeah, it could be for Lost Kin later, but it seems unlikely given the Radiant boss assign lines. If, for instance, if Jeff was going to do Lost Kin, that would only overlap with Gorgeous Husk, which is actually our difficulty 1 goal on this board. So it seems unlikely. Mathulu also remembering to mark obtain Sprint Master, Dash Master.
Yes. Forgetting to mark random goals. Classic. But yeah, to answer chat, Golka, those are the things that shoot like plant balls at you in Green Path. We'll see Jeff kill one of them coming up here, presumably. Generally, you just play tennis with them to kill them.
And so what's next from these? Oh, Mathulu, let's go. Mathulu is maybe going to show off a variant. All right, gets the wings variant. There are several different acid skips for that pool in Kingdom's Edge. We saw one of them in the True Ending speedrun a little bit earlier where you C-dash over. There's also a acid skip that is done with just Claw and C-dash that Mathulu went for briefly there that is featured in the best category, all charm notches.
Yeah, it looks like Mathulu is looking to go for that simple key, the Rancid Egg beneath Oro here, working towards that Dreamnail Marissa goal that I'm sure he's extremely happy to complete. Meanwhile, Jeff going through Green Path, getting some extra damage, and also killing Massive Moss Charger for that Radiant boss goal. It's definitely one of the fastest Radiant bosses to complete, so pretty good choice for him here.
Yeah, and good also to pick up Descending Dark early. Like we were saying, Shade Soul and Abyss Shriek are a little bit more annoying to come by. Abyss Shriek's not necessarily too bad, actually. You got Rafters and Crypts, but Shade Soul seems a little unlikely, at least not until relatively late in the game. So getting D-Dark early is a great way of dispatching bosses.
Yeah. Jeff doing some acid dunks in order to kill this Durandu. Unfortunately, misses with the second D-Dark. That's unfortunate. Always amusing killing Durandus without Ismas.
It's surprisingly time consuming to get some of this Green Path murder out of the way.
Yeah, and there we saw a Golka killed. Here we'll see a Durandu killed.
Yep, and Math already zooming on into City. Looking through his assigned stuff, we're getting Marissa out of the way quickly. For those of you unaware, in Randomizer, because game doesn't want to lock you out of intended progression in waterways, should that happen, the game forces you to have 2 simple keys in order to access any simple key locked area that is not waterways itself. So you have to rush 2 of those in order to get Pleasure House. So very heads up routing for Mathulu. Getting this out of the way first. The bench for later. Oh,
yeah,
man.
Looks like Mathulu does not have Dreamnail right now, so cannot Dreamnail Marissa or even listen to Marissa. So unfortunately, we'll have to come back later. But that is some progress made towards that goal, which is good.
And meanwhile, like Jeff back in Crossroads, probably moving towards right side. Also worth picking up Shaman from its mostly vanilla location at Salubra. Any damage you can get for bosses later, especially Radiant bosses, which just have so much health, is going to be useful.
Yeah. Looks like Mathulu might be going over to pick up Rafters here. I forget what's there, but I remember it was something.
It was a VS,
Howling Wraith.
Or Wraiths, yeah.
Yeah. Might be looking
building
to
our
get that
damage
streak.
slowly but surely. And so from here, it's fairly common in Dab that you'll see a period of time that is just movement setup. And then we're going to start seeing a ton of goals marked off in quick succession. You can see with Mathulu, he's already got benches in Queen's Gardens, in Pleasure House. So once you get the damage, you can just run through all of your goals as fast as possible. It makes for exciting finishes for sure. Jeff also grabbing some relics and some other charms for notches here, it looks like.
Yeah, also working towards that spend 5k goal for that 4th row. Mathulu picking up Shaman, getting that damage. Worth noting, the obtain 1 extra soul vessel goal, which Mathulu does have assigned, can be done, I believe, entirely in shops. There's like 5 vessel fragments in shops or something. So that should be pretty easy to get.
This is a very kind seed for that.
Yeah.
So from here, I wonder what Mathulu's second line is looking like going to be. We got a pretty good indication of what Jeff's second line might be with that sit down and hidden station marked early. But I am curious what Mathulu might pick. Row 3 is possible. It's a bit awkward to pivot off of the Dreamnail Marissa rather than Radiant Boss, because it would mean you'd have to do Soulmaster and Lostkin. But they've got fairly good damage. If I'm not mistaken, Nail Arts weren't super easy to come by in this seed, though, so you would have to do an unfortunate amount of Sanctum.
Yeah. Looks like Mathulu is purchasing some stuff from shops right now, maybe working towards that 5k goal. Also, I think Mathulu may have missed the Dirtmouth bench earlier somehow. Not sure exactly why he chose to climb up to Dirtmouth instead of bench warping. Gonna save Sly here. Take a look at Sly's shop as well. Meanwhile, Jeff killing Gorgeous Husk, probably just for the Geo instead of actually for the goal, but we'll see if he remembers to mark that goal anyways.
It could also very much be for the goal. I mean, it's not impossible. You got stuff at Mantis Lords. You've already been to Broken Vessel. Depending on what it looked like, he was eyeing Equip 5 Charms at the same time. He could really be doing this for a second line. It's not impossible.
That is true. And Mathulu did buy Dream Wielder as well, which is a 1-notch charm. So they could both be going for a line including Equip 5 Charms. Maybe Mathulu's going for BLTR?
Both diagonals. BLTR is dangerous because you'd have to do Oro Flower when you don't otherwise have to do Oro Flower.
That is true. Though, who knows, it could be a pretty free goal if you are just extremely good at Flower Quest.
Is very true. I mean, so a bit of context on the Oro Flower goal. The conventional randomizer generator, if it's used for non-spoiler log formats, has Flower to Elderbug, which is widely considered one of the most annoying goals. But that is because in Rando, when your checks are unknown to you, you often have infected the crossroads by the time that you're able to do that. So we wanted to preserve some of the difficulty in that, and what better way to do that than Primal Aspids?
Yep. Speaking of infection, Mathulu picking up Hera there, probably not intentionally. It doesn't really do anything because there's nothing in Black Egg Temple and no goals requiring Dreamers on this board. Also picking up Dreamnail here. We'll see when he decides to go finish off that bug in Pleasure House.
Knowing Math, it may be the last thing he does, but we will see. And yeah, so also, as it's been said, no endings are required, so the Dreamers are basically purely cosmetic for this, in a nice change of pace from some of the ending-based speedruns we have seen earlier today. Jeff working on these Queen's Gardens arenas, it looks like.
Yeah, fortunately, Queen's Garden Stag was pretty easy, so the access to these arenas was, these arenas were pretty easy to get to, but they are still pretty annoying, especially when D-Dark is your only damage for Petras.
Yeah, Mathulu looking a little bit better with Wraiths, but also just opting to play it safe and try and sort of pogo out of the Frisbee range.
Yeah, it looks like Mathulu might be going for both QG arenas. Or he might be going for the spell at Love Key. That might be a Shriek.
Yeah, Love Key had
Oh,
some
no, it was a
spell upgrade.
VS. It was a VS.
Certainly better than trying to get Shriek at White Palace or trying to get Shade Soul through Dark Deep Nest.
Yeah. Amusingly, this arena will probably be actually easier for Jeff than the previous one, despite it usually being the other way around, just because D-Dark is so much better at dealing with those ground enemies than the Petras in the Petra arena. And it does look
actually,
like... Yeah, it does look like we're getting an acid skip from Mathulu here.
Oh, and trying to do it without dashing into the wall. Much like with the Kingdom's Edge acid pool, there are almost uncountable number of ways to skip this acid pool to Love Key. I feel like one of the hallmarks of rando racers is they come in and discover a new Love Key skip. I swear it happens every week. So that's a fairly standard one that looks a lot like the Queen's Gardens acid skip from the Any% speedrun. And defeat both arenas in Queen's Gardens, actually also a relatively new goal. Dab is looking to expand the goal list a little bit because unsatisfied by having merely 200 goals, trying to push the boundaries of what can be done in any given race.
Looks like Mathulu is heading over towards Mantis Village now, perhaps to do Mantis Lords, but probably mostly to pick up that Shade Soul at Mantis Claw with the VS he's already gotten. Still curious what his plans are for that second row. But Shade Soul will definitely make the Umu that he has to do much easier.
Jeff also very conspicuously eyeing those 6 lifeblood masks. He does need to get 10 at the same time, so having 6 stockpiled at a Zelda is a nice way to be.
Yeah. In addition to those 6, he'll need another 4, which means either Lifeblood Core or Jonies, or just Dreamgate plus more Lifeblood somewhere else. If I remember correctly, the Lifeblood wasn't too bad, like the Lifeblood Charms.
And no, it had Jonies. Jonies was terrible. Jonies was at Fluke Marm, which I highly doubt we're going to see today. But
I mean,
Lifeblood Core was just
they are going to Godhome, right? So Fluke Marm isn't that horrible.
That is fair. Fluke Marm is sort of on the way. But also, Lifeblood Core is simply at the Mass Shard and Queen Station, so that's a much, much easier. There's even a stag right there. You could head back if you get Dirtmouth Stag.
Yep. Jeff picking up Grimchild here, interestingly. I forget if there's anything at Grim. Oh, looks like this is just 4 or 5 charms at the same time. Looks like he still needs one more notch or one more one-notch charm.
Almost there, but not quite.
Yeah, you can see the decision-making tax that this goal is costing here, with Jeff not quite sure exactly when he has enough.
Yeah, it's looking... is Grimchild some Lifeblood masks? Brilliant. Yep. That is some heads up routing right there from Jeff. Taking advantage of, like Jason said, the buff to the randomized Lifeblood checks. Meanwhile, Math getting started on this Umu fight.
Yep. I believe there is a Sane Umu option in the QOL mod that is used to make things more like 1221 instead of current patch that guarantees perfect Umu RNG and also in other ways makes the Umu fight just like nicer. So we might see a 1 cycle here.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Just barely. Yeah, Sane Umu, it guarantees you get the best possible RNG from Umu, which is why Umu is only throwing out short attacks right now in this second phase. It also nerfed Umu's health 4-1-2-2-1 even. I don't remember exactly what patch it was. Umu used to have 250 health, and then it got buffed to 300, so Sane Umu reverts its health back to 250, making 1 cycles much more achievable in general. Unfortunately, Math just barely missing it there as he turns around to head for these lore tablets.
Yeah, it looks like he passed by this one on his first pass through, and will now be showcasing both the left and right doors to the Umu Arena.
You love to see remembering both exits to the arena.
Meanwhile, Jeff heading over towards Mantis Village. I think he might really be going for column 1 here with Lost Kin, Mantis Lords equipped 5 charms at the same time. Which is pretty respectable, honestly. Umu is annoying.
Yeah, it's out of your way. It requires some specific movement to get to. The fight itself is highly variable in RNG ways that you don't like. Like, I know you, Jason, are yourself kind of a poo-pooer of Umu in terms of difficulty, but most dab consensus is that being assigned to Umu sucks.
Hey, I don't disagree with the claim that Umu sucks, but I just don't think it's like that actually that much time. Like, it sucks as a boss, but it's not actually that much as much time as people think it is, in my opinion.
That is fair. Certainly, one of the things about Dab is that it really forces you to consider exactly how much time anything takes from a lot of different positions and with basically optimal movement. So something that is more infuriating to do, but faster if you have, C-dash, wings, shriek, whatever, is actually likely going to be a lower difficulty goal for our generator than something that is not as infuriating, but just takes a long time. Thinking of something like Grubs and Crystal Peaks, just because there are 7 of them and they're scattered, even though the goal is not super hard, it's something that you often want to assign.
Yeah. And like it can be pretty unintuitive at first, like how much time things like defeat any one Radiant boss takes. Because like the bosses in Godhome actually have so much HP, and it can be I certainly didn't realize that the first time I did that goal. And also you just need to do the boss 3 times, 1 in the overworld, 1 ascended, and 1 radiant. It just takes so much time. And Godhome is also not particularly in the way of anything.
And Mathulu here going back for the False Knight fight. Interesting. 2 different maggots is on the board. There's also like a pale ore around this area. I'm not quite sure what that was set up for.
I think that was for Radiant boss, actually.
Could also very well be.
Mathulu has Shriek, which is
to...
pretty good. Yeah, it looks like Mathulu is heading towards Godhome right now, presumably to do that Radiant boss goal. Maybe he'll pick up whatever it was at Flukemarm. I'm already forgetting. There's a lot of things to keep track of.
Flukemarm had a Wraiths.
Oh, okay, so he won't need that?
No, Flukemarm had a Lifeblood Charm. Ignore me.
Okay.
He had a Lifeblood Charm for 10 Lifeblood Mass. That's not super relevant for Mathulu unless he decides to spec into that line.
Yeah, so it looks like Jeff is going to be doing Lost Kin here, going to Broken Vessel now with D-Dark. D-Dark is pretty good for Broken Vessel, not as good for Lost Kin, but still decent. You really want Shade Soul, but you did have to go through a bit of work this seed to get Shade Soul.
Yeah, as we saw in the TE race, Lost Kin and Broken Vessel, one of those very kind bosses that sometimes you can get triple hits with Shade Soul on. Rarely, but you're often getting doubles because of their weight. So having that range and damage is pretty nice. But D-Dark gives you invincibility frames. You can never go wrong with spamming D-Dark, even if it got nerfed on current patch.
Yeah.
So Mathulu entering Godhome here. One of the unfortunate quirks about entering Godhome is one of the QOL improvements to Rando is that you can sort of skip through cutscenes much faster, except for some reason, after you've entered Godhome, the setting forgets that you've done that. So Mathulu likely not going to upgrade his nail at any point, is what this means.
Hopefully
Also,
there
rushing
won't be too
Radiant
much.
Boss is just good.
Yeah, hopefully there won't be too much cutscene skipping needed. Looks like Mathulu is going to be over charming here for Radiant False Knight. Pretty smart, especially since, you know, if you're doing it Radiant, you're not going to be taking any damage anyways if you want to get through it. So over charming is pretty free. And Dream Wielder will help a lot with Soul Collection here against False Knight, making this much faster.
Yeah, and so to our earlier point about just how absolutely insane the health values can get in Godhome, Lostkin on Jeff's screen, a famously high health boss and the ender of a lot of casual playthroughs, has 1200 HP, if I'm not mistaken. And the Radiant False Knight fight, counting for all three of his phases, has over 1600.
Yeah, you can see here, like, Mathulu is throwing several Shade Soul doubles and streaks with Shaman Stone at False Knight, and, like, one Shaman Stone streak would kill a normal False Knight in the overworld, but these are not even close to killing False Knight here.
And so oftentimes, even in cases where you have pretty good spell damage, you will see runners grab a nail upgrade or two in order to make Radiant Boss more bearable. Tulu, a seasoned 112 runner, not gonna bother, just gonna be like, yeah, no, I got this.
Apparently, according to Emre, Lostkin is 1400?
1400 is Godhome Lostkin, and 1200 is base Lostkin, but I am definitely centered in current patch, so that may not be globally true.
Sense.
But point being, they buffed, especially the early bosses. One of my favorite fun facts is that in Pantheon 5, Hornet Sentinel, Hornet 2, has less health than Hornet 1.
Wow, that is crazy.
It just to make the early game bosses feel like more of a fight, you have insane health buffs to some of the early game bosses. Mathulu making good progress on this Radiant boss stuff, while Jeff heading for the City Crest Bridge. I don't recall exactly.
I assume this is a Charm Notch or One Notch Charm or something. I think there was a Charm Notch somewhere here. Yeah, there we go.
Do it.
Yeah, so that will be 5 charms at the same time for Jeff. Then he'll just have to finish up killing that Durandu that was bullying him earlier, and then go head towards Radiant Boss. So I would say that Jeff is pretty far ahead here, except Radiant Boss is actually a lot of time. So the fact that Mathulu is almost done while Jeff hasn't started is actually a bigger advantage than you might think.
Yeah, Radiant Boss easily the biggest, easily the biggest time sink of this. So I would say the runners are actually fairly close here. This could very much go either way because Mathulu's already got benches for Marissa. Soul Vessels are in shops. So his assigned line is pretty much done. From there, it becomes a question of what he wants to spec into. I think if he went for row 4, depending on how easy Geo is to get a hold of, he's pretty close to or already at all of the toll benches. That shouldn't be too bad either.
Yeah, it looks like Mathulu's checking shops right now, looking for those vessel fragments, and is going to be getting 3 of them here, I presume. Might not have enough Geo. But I am very curious what he's thinking of for that second row.
We got an unfortunate timer reset. This race was just very, very fast.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter. I'm assuming
assumed
that is
was
a
hotkey or something.
global hotkeys. Yeah, a global hotkeys mix-up. This will be a race decided on RTA anyway, so while we regret not giving you an accurate picture with the timer, ultimately not too big a deal like it would be in some of the speedrun races. And there, having finally completed the green path cleanup that we started so long ago, Mathulu overcharmed on 1 health in Fog Canyon and still swatting Umas. That's not like a place I would want to be.
Yeah, it looks like Mathulu might be going for that row 3 now. He is heading towards green path. Oh, might just be picking up this geo here for those soul vessels.
Jeff, meanwhile, just has a radiant boss in between himself and victory.
Yep. We'll see how long this takes. I believe he'll be electing to do massive Moss Charger here, presumably, since he already killed that in green path. And it is considered to be one of the faster Radiant bosses. And yeah, it looks like Mathulu is going through some green path murder here with some Golkas and Durandus and such.
And given that Durandu a warning shot.
Yep.
And there's that. I love Mathulu's commitment to not unovercharming, but there is going to finally take Shaman Stone and Dream Wielder off.
Yeah, that Durandu overcharmed was certainly spicy.
It's worth noting for Jeff's Radiant boss quest here, but Jeff still only has base VS. So I'm assuming this is some nail upgrades to make the Massive Moss Charger fight a little bit less time consuming. It's basically just a rhythm game, but it's a rhythm game where 1 hit means you have to restart it, and that is a very unfortunate place to be in when you are this close to winning a dab.
Yeah, also, I think if you're planning on doing doing Radiant MMC with just nail, probably just like any amount of nail upgrades you can get is going to actually save time, since you need to do so many hits for that. And Jeff coming out to perfectly 0 geo, you love to see it.
That's one of my pet bingo goals that is unfortunately probably not realizable, but spend geo down to exactly 0. Shout outs to Jeff for giving me my dream there. So yeah, we're definitely in the end game now.
Yep. Looks like Mathulu is having a bit of geo problems, having to run back and forth to pick up some more geo to get these soul vessels, unfortunately.
Yeah, the randomizer treats basically most items that are not major progression, charms, that sort of thing, as junk items, which means a couple of things. 1, it means they're more likely to appear in shops than not, and 2, it means they're more likely to be expensive in shops. So if you're new to Rando and you see something like a 1080 Geo Rancid Egg or something and are scratching your head at that, that's sort of a marker meaning like this probably isn't important, but if it's necessary for a goal, Sly's going to charge you an arm and a leg for it.
Yep.
And looks Jeff like getting a little bit bullied by Flukes here.
Yeah, so Mathulu has to head up to kill Soulmaster here and then also kill Lostkin. And then, of course, Dream Now Marissa. Meanwhile, Jeff only has to do Radiant Boss. I think Jeff is going to be in the lead here, though like a death to the Radiant Boss could certainly put him behind.
And depending on, and also especially depending on where in the Massive Moss Charger fights Jeff dies. Like if Jeff aces Ascended MMC and then takes a hit early on to Radiant, it's probably fine. But if Jeff makes it, 75%, 80% of the way through Radiant Massive Moss Charger and then dies, that's a whole other giant health bar you have to go through.
I wouldn't completely discount Mathulu yet, even if Jeff doesn't die, because with Shriek, Soulmaster is going to be extremely fast. And then Lostkin also won't be too slow either with Shade Soul. So I don't know. I think this could still be close.
Yeah, Mathulu, unfortunately, like we said, nail upgrades were pretty or nail arts rather were pretty inaccessible. So even though this randomizer mod is based on the current patch of the game, it patches back in a lot of quality of life things, among them lever skips, which you've seen in every speedrun so far today. Maybe not 4 mask shards, but you don't have the opportunity to get dash slash like is so commonly done to skip our way through Soul Sanctum in runs like all skills. So Mathulu just walking through it and going to Shriek Soulmaster a couple times. He's probably gonna die soon. There he goes. Yeah, this could really end up being a Lost Kin versus Radiant MMC sort of race.
Yeah, there's Soulmaster. Mathulu should probably just quit out here. Yeah, it looks like he's going to. Doesn't actually need to pick up any of the rewards. And now this is Lostkin.
It's gonna come down to the wire for sure. So especially if Moss Charger gives bad RNG like that, jumping a ton at the beginning when Jeff doesn't have Shriek or even Shade Soul to really like contest that in terms of damage.
Any sane MMC mods?
Sane MMC.
Neutralize that horrible RNG.
Yeah, Jeff taking some damage. D-Dark is sort of hard to fit in the middle of MMC's charge. Yeah, better to fit it in when he's about to burrow like that. But this is going to be very, very close, I think, especially if Jeff is struggling with Ascended MMC. There he is, alright. Broken Vessel and Ascended MMC down at the exact same time. Mathulu needs to kill Lost Kin and then quickly clean up the rest before Jeff gets Radiant.
Yeah, this is actually pretty close.
We'll see. Jeff, yeah, taking it easy there, not trying to get fancy with the D-Darks. Oh. Alright, still not over yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it just became closer.
Yeah, I think with the right... This probably has to be the fight. Math getting a lot of good doubles on Lostkin here. Yeah. We will see.
I forget if Radiant has more HP than Ascended.
Typically they don't. I think it's few to no bosses have a health upgrade between Ascended and Radiant. Team Cherry figured the one-hit kill was enough of an upgrade.
Mathulu on scarily low HP here. Did take a heal earlier.
That's Lostkin kill.
Yep. I'm going to warp out here, going to go buy that last Vessel Fragment and Dreamnail Marissa. But there's the Radiant boss. GG.
That was in the nick of
extremely
time.
Close.
That was, yeah, down to the wire. And so let the record show, if you delay killing Marissa, then you lose. That's what this comes down to. But I feel like Mathulu secretly cheering just a little bit to make sure that Marissa was spared this race. And now, of course, I bet you anything at all that he's going to sit and listen to her instead of finishing up the race.
Yep.
Or just leave Pleasure House altogether. Hulu making a brief detour to Poggy Thorax. So I know we are probably very close to